Hello and welcome to Principles of Bookkeeping Controls, an introduction on how to pass this unit. And this video is attached in this playlist attached to this study guide here and also the exam guide as well and 5 assessments. So there's a study guide taken through the strategy of every single approach in Principles of Bookkeeping Controls, and then the exam guide sort of tightens that up a little bit there and provides you lots of question practice. So I want you to imagine, before we start this playlist, I want you to imagine you're going to do an exam. You're going to do an exam and it's worth 2/3 of a GCSE and it has exactly the same 8 exam question types. I'm going to be set in exactly the same way. Every single exam, you don't have to worry that you're going to have something new coming up here. Exactly the same 8 question types, and they're going to set out in exactly the same way, and the only thing that's going to change in this exam for you is that the words are going to change a bit and the numbers are going to change a bit. That's all that's going to happen really in there, but I can give you pretty much the exam question types that you will have. Now, I might do slightly different. You might have a sales ledger question rather than a purchase ledger question, but it's pretty much going to be the same type of question. A double entry bookkeeping test, let's say. And you're going to answer those questions in exactly the same way every time. There's no difference to this in terms of you don't have to think. It's just very mechanical. I think you'd be feeling incredibly confident that you were going to get a very high score in this exam, something around about close to 100%, and you're going to use this as a distinction for your whole entire unit. And it's going to take you 50 hours worth of time. Probably about 20 hours to learn it, 30 hours worth of question practice. But you'd be wrong, because this is the pass rate for bookkeeping controls. So for the last year, and it's only 67%. And this includes people who resit as well, so that less than half of people pass this first time. So what's going on? Because as I said, it is genuinely a really easy unit. And this is probably the easiest unit out of all of them to get right. And then I can tell you exactly how it's going to go in an exam, and I can set it out exactly how you're going to do it. And if you followed it, you'd get 100%. So why is it that this is happening? What's going wrong? Well, there's 2 things that are going wrong. Firstly, the introduction to bookkeeping is required for this unit, so you need to have a very strong, good double entry bookkeeping knowledge and a knowledge of T accounts to come into this unit. Yeah, so, and what we can see really is that the traditional books aren't providing that knowledge in there. 2 things going wrong there: the use of dead click, which means that people don't understand double entry bookkeeping, debits and credits. What's happening there is that in this exam, I'm going to reverse some things so your debits and credits can go back and forth in the same account really, and dead click doesn't work for that. And then the other thing as well is a poor layout of T accounts, and that's using the accounting equation as assets minus liabilities is equal to capital, rather than assets equals liabilities plus capital, which is a correct T account and the way that the accounting equation should be laid out. Assets minus liabilities equals capital is actually the statement of shareholder funds, statement of financial positions. So that's what's going wrong first of all. So hopefully you should have used these 2 books for introduction to bookkeeping. If you did, you're going to have a really solid opening position for double entry bookkeeping, and you're in a much better position to be able to answer this exam. If you haven't, there is a playlist that goes alongside those study guides, and even if you didn't get the books, then you could use those playlists and just tighten up on your double entry bookkeeping coming in. If you're using dead click, if your T accounts you feel a bit shaky on there, you really need to sharpen those up before really going on this. And if you can use like the paper and cups video out of that playlist, that really does sharpen up your double entry bookkeeping straight away. 40 minutes of your time, but you'll really sort of save yourself a lot of heartache, and lots of people use that. Sort of a few thousand every month use that to really just fix the double entry bookkeeping. So we need to have a good knowledge of introduction to bookkeeping. Hopefully you've used the previous books to be in that position, and then you're going to have an approach to every question. There's an approach to every single question, a strategy. And you're going to use these strategies, and that will give you the right answer every time. But they're not set out in the traditional textbooks. In fact, there's some times where you'll see in the traditional textbooks whereby we might have, let's say, an error question, and instead of setting out the strategy of how to do it, which is what journal has been posted that was incorrect, So what's that? Reverse that, add that to the particular accounts in there, and now see whether they line up, which is how to fix the error question in a reconciliation. Instead of doing that, let's have a massive long list over 2 pages of what the examiner might say, and therefore what the answer might be, rather than just a really simple, we'll just set out the journal, reverse the journal, do the figures add up? Now, that's it. So instead of doing something which you could learn in the way that's been set out in this book in an hour with solid question practice, you're going to spend days trying to remember that, and it's not going to stick in. And anyway, even if it did, for this unit, you're going to return to this unit in business environment. And 42% of the business environment course is going to be Introduction to Bookkeeping and Principles of Bookkeeping Controls. And you won't memorize it all for that, and so then you'll go badly wrong in the business environment unit. So we're not going to do it like that. We're going to do an approach to every single question, a strategy, and we're going to then do exactly the same thing every single question. And I'm going to take the exam completely apart for you in terms of how every single question is going to be done. That's what this playlist does. That's why it's so successful. If you don't do that, so if you go down the way in which it's sort of set out at the moment traditionally, when the examiner changes the words a bit, people then start to make it up and then take shortcuts. And so most people pass, and most people do well, but they happen to be really clever, and they sort of work it out in there and quite organised, really. So they're sort of fixing it for themselves. But the average person isn't passing. And so what happens is the examiner will change the words a little bit. And they'll also as well entice you and encourage you to take a shortcut. Save a bit of time, take a shortcut. You don't need to, because you're not going to use up all the time in this exam anyway. It's 1.5 hours there though. If you took an hour or an hour and 10 minutes, I'd be amazed. But you can take some shortcuts and be out of there in 45 minutes. And of course, you'll be back there. I'm going to do it again because you will have failed. And so really, don't do that. We're going to go through really the sort of way. I'm going to give you an example now. So let's go through an example. A bank reconciliation is set out in 4 steps for the exam. So you're going to do it in 4 steps every single time in exactly the same way. Step 1 is going to be tick all the cash book items to the bank statement. Step 2 is going to be reconcile about 4 balances. You're going to have some differences then in the in the cash book, and you're going to tick them into the bank statement because they were in the previous month's bank reconciliations. Don't worry about whether you need to take this in or not. You're going to update the cash book, and you're going to reconcile the bank statement to the cash book. That's going to do it, and you do it every single time in exactly the same way. Only then will you answer the question. You will not answer any questions before you've done that. But the examiner is going to say, just give me the updated cash book balance, please. And you're going to go, well, that's stage 3. Let's knock out stage 3 and leave the other ones alone. Well, yeah, but you could have gone through all the steps and reconciled all the balance statements, and that would have told you that you were absolutely right. You were 100% right from there. You don't have to check any work from that point of view. All you've now got is the answers. Drop them into the question, into the questions there, and you're sorted. Same thing with the wages control. I'm going to set out 4 steps of the wages control. You're going to do them all there. You'll have all your answers all there set up and available to you, and then you'll answer the question. If you don't do that, you'll have a guess, and you will either just get it wrong in terms of a step in there, or you won't get your additions correct. Your additions won't be right, or you'll miss out one of the figures in the tick that we should be having in the bank statement that's in the cash book, whatever, and you'll miss some marks and you get the wrong answers. And that's what really happens in this question. When people sort of come out of the exam and they say that they failed, they say I felt like the examiner was trying to trick me. Well, the examiner wasn't trying to trick you. I mean, the examiner asked you for part of the overall control. You decided to just do that part of the overall control, and you left all the other marks on the table. Really, the examiner was tricking you, I suppose, to a bit of an extent, to see whether you'd shortcut. Don't shortcut here. I can see why people do it, because it's the whole controls aren't set out in the books. In fact, in the wages control one, I'm going to set out probably the better control that's used in practice, and then we're going to fit that back into the actual examiner's approach. So we'll always get 100% on that 10% mark, 10% of the exam. So that's how we're going to go about it. So in this guide, every question has an approach. So every single question will have exactly the same approach. Only the payments methods question is a memory test. So that's the first chapter. That's going to be a memory test. Everything else, we're going to apply a technique. You're going to read the guide and you're going to watch the videos. That'll take you about 15 hours. And then you do lots and lots of question practice. So because you've got this technique and you've got to almost be applying it like a robot. That's pretty much how you're going to be doing it, and you're going to be very robotic in this, doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same way every single time. So lots and lots of question practice. So in the study guide, there's about 3 exams worth of exam standard questions in there. So I actually pack that full of questions, and then you've got 5 assessments as well in the other book. So that's eight there. There's two ones in the AAT website. So that's give us 10, and then there's a free one, I think, from Acorn and Mazars, and I think they sell another 5 as well if you're really after those. Something a bit more expensive, but that gives you sort of at least 11 that you can get hold of, really, that are at a very cheap price as well. That will give you that lots and lots and lots of question practice, and that's what you really need. In the playlist as well, I think there's some more, there's walkthroughs as well of the specific questions and exactly how to do it, so you can see exactly what it sort of means. So you've got a whole sort of array there of sort of visual and audio and then the written word on the page as well. So hopefully that should be helpful. That's how you're going to go about it. That will give you the way in terms of passing. So let's get started, shall we? In the next chapter, we're going to start with payment methods. Now, payment methods is just going to help us to understand the different timings of payments, so that we might make a payment or put an entry in the cash book, but it might not hit the bank statement for some time because of the way in which it goes through the banking system. We're going to work out how that's going to impact on the bank statement, and then that is going to set up our position to be able to do a bank reconciliation. Combined, payment methods and bank reconciliations will be 35% of this exam, and 35% of this exam that you should be looking to get very close to 100% for, and really set up your pass in this unit. So it's important in here, very important really. Bank statements is bank reconciliations is the biggest question in there. 25% of the marks are on bank reconciliations in there. So payments methods are going to set it up, so we see what the times are, and then you're going to do the bank reconciliation. Question. Hopefully that's give you some confidence as well, seeing those pass rates, and that actually there is a way to do this and exactly how you should be doing it. And I'll see you in the next chapter. Thanks for listening.